Chinese official documents establish very clearly that one of the mission of the Chinese embassies and consulates abroad is to track down people who came from China, who came from Xinjiang, to identify them, to identify their relatives back in Xinjiang, to order their monitoring and surveillance. Now, we have to realize that this is not really a new technique for China, who's always tried to silence critical voices abroad. But the scope and the ambition of this campaign is really unparalleled. And of course, it's also totally illegal and unlawful. Governments do not, and especially diplomatic missions, do not have the right to monitor, conduct security activities, or even harass residents and nationals of another country. So this is really something that the international community should wake up, and China should be called into account for this, as well as for their policies in Xinjiang of mass detention of Muslim and other ethnic minorities.
How would you like the international community to stand up and actually take action?
Well, I think that there need to be calls for independent investigation in Xinjiang. Although there's enormous evidence now of the scale of this mass detention, with up to 1 million people being detained out of a population of 10, 11 million. That's one person out of 10. You have orphanages built just to house the children of people who are being detained because their mothers and fathers are being detained. You have an enormous secrecy, and you have really extraordinarily repressive religious policies, such as forcing people to eat during Ramadan, prohibiting children from receiving any religious education, and so on. So there is the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, there is the Security Council of the United Nations. These are the forums where these issues must be taken up by China, as it claims that it wants to take a global role in the world's governance and play a positive role. Whereas what we're seeing is that at home and abroad, it conducts very repressive policies that we are familiar with.
But how should this report and the evidence that you have, and of course what's been confirmed by the Chinese government as well, of the detention of these over 1 million people, how should that affect, let's say, European countries' dealings with China? Should it not tangibly change them?
Well, I think that any dealing with China, whether it's business or security or trade, and of course human rights or diplomacy, should raise these issues and should ask the Chinese government for account. It is not possible to let one of the biggest power in the world carry this kind of massive repression without being taken into account for it. So this must be raised at the public level by governments, by presidents, prime minister, foreign ministers. It must be raised during visits to China. And I would say it must be raised in relation to the coronavirus, because what we are seeing is policies that essentially rely on social control, use of intelligence, artificial intelligence, face recognition, big data, with the sole purpose of building a giant police state. And that should be a worry not only for Chinese and for Uyghurs, but for the entire world.